Hi, I am back with Jeneca Parker. She is the former principal of PSIS 180. And we spoke to Jeneca in our curriculum chapter. If you are watching this video, you are probably reading Evidence to Inform and Act. And before I even partnered with Jeneca and her school, they were already really focused on the competencies to cultivate a self-empowered learner. Like they had already really had an SEL team in place, and they cared deeply about this. And from my perspective, I think that was the work where they felt the most engaged as a school site. And it made a lot of sense because it was post-pandemic and during pandemic. But I think what really struck me about your school, Jeneca, is how you gathered evidence regarding these SEL competencies and how you use that evidence to make decisions that would be in the best interest of your kids, and maybe make decisions in partnership with your kids about the decisions that are best for them. Could you speak a little bit about that evidence gathering and maybe the DESA instrument and all the different ways that you might have used this instrument in a practical way for someone who's just reading or learning about this maybe for the first time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there were many tools that we used. One of the things that we started with was, number one, just talking to our students, asking our students where they saw themselves and their thought in the process. You and I partnered together when we talked about what does it mean to be a self-empowered learner. And so we had something at our school. It was the culture of our school to have video recorded morning announcements. It's something that started in the pandemic. It was a lot of work, but let me tell you, boy, was it worth it in bringing people together. We continued after we were all back together in community. Yeah. And so we started each day first by saying, be here, be you, belong. And those were not just words. It's really what wove everything together. And one of these days, I asked the students to turn and talk, pause the video, turn and talk. What does it look like and sound like to be an empowered learner? And I invited the teachers across the school, pre-K through 8, to join me in a conversation. And so you heard this beautiful buzz all throughout the hallways when you're walking up and down, students talking about what it means to be empowered. And this is happening as students as young as age 4 all the way to 14. And when it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so you start with having a shared language. That's really important in the work. And this really was an opportunity for the classroom to get normed and to have conversations about what that looks like. Yeah. We also asked the kids on an individual level through a survey where they saw themselves and what it looks like to be a self-empowered learner. And we tracked that data all throughout the year. And so we did this in the mornings. Every so often we'd have these conversations, we would check in, but we'd also have our students check in with each other with their partnerships that they had in learning partnerships. Another tool that we used is something called DESA. And DESA is a tool that you can use to measure social emotional learning throughout the school. One of the things within DESA is that it asks the adults to think deeply about how students are showing up in this space. And so this was another data point where we weren't asking the students, we were asking individuals that had deep relationships with the students about what were the strengths. That's a beautiful thing, is that it's an asset-based model. It's not looking at what are all the things that we need to fix or improve. That is not what it's about. It's about a child's strengths. And as you put it, Paul, those funds of knowledge that they bring to us into the space. And so we capture that, we celebrate that, and we use tools like DESA, as well as a self-empowered learner survey, so that way we're able to elevate and continue the conversation, so that way all of our learners are getting a little bit stronger at each one of these competencies: self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, all of these areas.
So what I'm really taking from this conversation, that is something that your community valued. And so the evidence that you gather as a learning community should reflect your values, right? And I think that's something that we don't really think about. And in the early chapters of the book, we talk about how important it is to co-construct those core beliefs and our community agreements to each other. But another way is by painting this beautiful picture of what we believe a self-empowered learner is, right? And then thinking of all those competencies, academic, social, and emotional competencies. But what I heard you do is you took it to a whole nother step and you actually tracked that data in partnership with your kids. And it was all asset-based. So kids learned about themselves through their strengths. And then it was, how do we build on the strengths that we're already bringing to the class?
Absolutely. And each classroom had a different SEL goal. We had goals across grade bands and across the school. And this became the language, if you will, across the school in terms of how we moved and navigated throughout the work. And this was really helpful. It was helpful for students to know what they can get a little bit stronger at, what we're all working towards. But it also provides a pathway for us to be able to really enter into the conversation, whether it's academia or whether we're talking about well-being in our advisory sessions. It lives everywhere.
Well, that concludes this session. I just wanted to thank Jeneca again for helping us all to understand how to use other sources of evidence within your PLC or impact team model to make decisions in partnership with your kids and families. Thanks, Jeneca.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.